Kyojuro Rengoku, love him or hate him, is one of the most divisive characters in Demon Slayer for one main reason: his power level. People just can't seem to get an accurate idea of how strong Rengoku is within the series of Demon Slayer. The main culprit for this discourse is being the fact that it's generally agreed upon that upper rank 3 Akaza was holding back against Rengoku. Now, whether this stance is accurate or not doesn't really matter in the context of this video, because we do have a way of comparing a serious Akaza to Rengoku. When Akaza first arrives on the scene in chapter 63 at the Mugen train, Akaza does something before ever uttering a word. He immediately tries to kill Tanjiro. Now, it's important to know why Akaza did this. Why would he immediately attack Tanjiro without even saying anything or acknowledging Rengoku? Well, the explanation for this isn't hard to find, as Akaza just tells us right after this scene that he hates weak humans, and when he sees weak humans, his skin crawls. This is something corroborated to us later in the Infinity Castle, when Akaza says he only despises the weak, and in one of the craziest lines of the manga says he spits on them. I think you get what I'm saying here. Akaza hates weak people, so when he saw Tanjiro laying down, he saw something that he hated and wanted to destroy. Now, this moment is extremely important and overlooked because it tells us some information about Akaza and Rengoku. We know Akaza isn't using his compass yet. We know Akaza is moving extremely fast towards Tanjiro, so his punch speed is faster than normal since it's both the velocity of his punch and travel speed. And we know that Rengoku's flame breathing outsped this. You might say, well, Akaza is coming from extremely far away, and while this is true, Rengoku doesn't activate his form until Akaza gets in close to punch Tanjiro. Now, Akaza does decommit to the punch and react, moving backwards once Rengoku breaches his arm, but that doesn't change the fact that Rengoku was faster than Akaza can punch here, as we see a perspective panel of Akaza directly on top of Tanjiro, and then we see Rengoku launch his form, and we see Akaza's fist fully extended, meaning Rengoku did indeed outspeed this form, and after this, Akaza just decommitted because the attack was a failure. Base form Akaza's punch here is amped because his movement velocity is added to his punching velocity. Now, whether or not Akaza's travel speed is good or not doesn't really matter, I'm just saying it's faster than normal. Now, why is this important for Rengoku versus Gyokko? Well, base form Gyokko also uses his hands to attack just like Akaza. It's not the same way, he doesn't physically punch, but he does need to unleash his attacks towards his opponents. Every single one of his attacks in Blood Demon Arts comes from him using his hands to form a vase and unleash his attack towards his opponent. We see this with his water prison pot, where it forms out of his hand and he has to actively move towards his opponent with it to trap them in the water. We see it with his long-range attack on the concentrating sword maker. We see it with the octopus arm spawns, where they once again require him to form the pot and then aim them towards his opponent. And we finally see it when he summons his army of toxic fish he sends towards Muichiro. The only attack where he doesn't need to launch his arms towards his opponent is with his poison fish, but in this attack specifically, the fish still need to jump out the pot and then charge up their attack, which could potentially be slower since Muichiro does react to this attack when he's nerfed. So if these two were to battle, if Rengoku's anywhere near Gyokko at the start of the fight, since he is significantly faster than base form Akaza's punches with his flame breathing, he should be able to cut down Gyokko's hands or arms instantly, as logically Gyokko in his base form should be slower physically than Akaza's base form. Not only because Gyokko's Upper Moon 5 and Akaza's Upper Moon 3, but Akaza's entire thing is punching fast. So with both demons in their base form here, I don't see any reason why Gyokko should be rivaling the speed of Akaza at all. Even if you did say Gyokko can move at the same speed as base form Akaza with his hands, which would honestly be a pretty insane claim to make and would be extraordinary wank, that's still massively slower than Rengoku's flame breathing forms, or God forbid, Rengoku's ninth form. And if base Gyokko can't move his arms physically as fast as base Akaza, he definitely isn't moving his arms faster than an Akaza who's moving at an increased speed because he's traveling and punching at the same time, which mind you is still inferior to Rengoku's flame breathing. Like I mentioned, Gyokko has to aim his attacks after he forms the pot in his hand, like with the water prison, the attack on the sword maker, the octopus arms, etc. I just don't see a way he can reliably get off these blood demon arts before Rengoku slices his arms to pieces or takes his head. I did mention earlier that there is one attack that doesn't necessarily require Gyokko to physically move his arms, and that's his poisonous fish, but like I mentioned, this attack was avoided by a base form Amnesia Muichiro, and then reacted to by Muichiro a second time to protect the villagers. Even if this attack was significantly faster than Gyokko's other attacks, if Muichiro was able to fend off its poison with breathing with his minimal experience and training, I see no reason why Rengoku couldn't do the same, since even as early as the Mount Nanagumo arc, we see Zenitsu is trained to fight off the poisons from a demon with his breathing. We also know Rengoku's breathing mastery in regards of the internal body is very high, since he helps Tanjiro stop his internal bleeding right before Akaza pulls up on them in Mugen Train. Moving on, you might be saying, well, what if Gyokko creates some distance to launch one of these blood demon arts to increase their chance to land? Since we see Gyokko is capable of teleporting short distances away via his pots, maybe then he would have time to get these attacks off. The issue with this is Rengoku likely could close this distance in an instant, as we saw in his fight against Akaza. When Akaza attempted to get distance from Rengoku nigh immediately responded and dashed towards the upper rank, even causing Akaza to complement Rengoku's speed inside his head. You could also imply the only reason Akaza was ever able to launch an attack at a distance from Rengoku is because he leaped extremely high in the air, which Gyokko simply can't do. And if Rengoku did jump here, he would be leaving his comrades in a position where he couldn't defend them, which, keep in mind, is also his goal in this fight. Besides killing Akaza, he wants to protect Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu. So this means one of a few things will likely happen if these two were to show down. Rengoku could close the distance in an instant and attempt to behead Gyokko, and Gyokko will either A, teleport away, which will just cause Rengoku to repeat the cycle and rush him again, or B, launch an attack that requires him to manifest a pot and then physically thrust it towards Rengoku at speeds faster than base form Akaza can punch. Not relative to base form Akaza punches, this would have to be faster. And I really want to emphasize that point, because if it's not at least faster than base form Akaza can punch, these attacks have no chance of hitting Rengoku or being launched at all. Gyokko is Upper Moon 5 and Akaza is Upper Moon 3, and they're both in their base forms, and Akaza's entire specialty is punching. Rengoku should just be able to shut down any of Gyokko's attacks, or just behead him before things get too crazy with something like Flame Tiger or Unknowing Fire. Gyokko's neck, while durable like any Upper Moon demon, was able to slightly be bored into by base form Amnesia poisoned Dull Sword Muichiro. And I also want to point out how much of a massive nerf the Dull Blade is to cutting potency, as Muichiro broke it on one of Gyokko's octopus arms, but his fresh sword was able to cut through an array of them like butter. If you do want to count Rengoku's mental lamp at the end of the Akaza fight where he chops into Akaza's neck, it's really no debate and he should easily be able to cut through Gyokko's head, but I don't even think it's necessary, as Rengoku just massively outscales this base form Amnesia Muichiro and has a much sharper sword. So Rengoku likely has the power to cut through Gyokko's neck, and also the speed to shut down any of his attacks, and if he teleports away, in character Rengoku is willing to lunge at his opponents to finish them, as we saw with Akaza, at speeds that are enough to impress Akaza. Gyokko's only real hope in this battle is to go into his final form, where he implies he gets more durable, faster, and now uses his God Hand's Blood Demon art to change things he touches into fish. The issue is, Gyokko would never get to this point in any fight with Rengoku, as he never starts in this form and has only gone into it 3 total times ever. It's sort of Gyokko's entire thing to save this form as his last ditch attempt to win the fight, as it's his finest creation and anyone who gets to witness it is special. So him starting the fight out like this against Rengoku is sort of like those hypothetical scenarios where you're like, oh well, how would healthy musical score Tengen perform against Gyotaro? It's just never really an option that is on the table in a fight. Gyokko is extremely yappy about his abilities and just outright compliments his speed, durability, and explains his God Hand's Blood Demon art as well. So in character, Gyokko would just say all of his abilities out loud, and Rengoku would have full intel on this man if he did somehow make it to this form. And this comparison is a bit more difficult to precisely pinpoint, but I think the answer to this battle should be fairly similar. Gyokko, I just don't think has the speed to keep up with Rengoku. Firstly, if you think Akaza wasn't holding back against Rengoku, then it's obvious Rengoku wins. Secondly, Akaza in his base still might just be faster than Gyokko's final form, which, not gonna cap, probably is true, but it's not really provable, and if you don't think so, I think there's another comparison we can make to assert Rengoku at a higher level than Gyokko. Akaza seems to directly compare Tanjiro's strength to Rengoku when Tanjiro fights him in the Infinity Castle. As we know about Akaza from what we talked about earlier, he hates weaklings and weak people. So after 1v1ing Tanjiro for a bit, he takes a second to compliment Tanjiro's growth and how he's trained well to reach this level so quickly. He then compares Tanjiro to his previous version at Mugen Train, saying he was a total weakling and Rengoku did good work. The next page is what makes people miss this comparison, because Akaza directly disses Rengoku, saying that his worthless values made him want to stay human and that he's glad he died. This obviously makes Tanjiro very mad, and Akaza responds saying, "Why? I'm praising him, you and Kyojuro." Tanjiro responds saying that Akaza isn't praising them but insulting them, but Akaza clarifies saying that Tanjiro misunderstands and that he only hates and despises the weak. So if Akaza's praise is for Rengoku and Tanjiro, and he clarifies saying that he only hates weaklings, it should just mean that he's complimenting both Tanjiro and Rengoku's strength or power. This is just backed up by the Rengoku fight as well, as Akaza respects him, even calling him one of the chosen strong ones. In Tanjiro's case, he says his growth is stunning and that it makes his heart dance, and I should note Akaza acknowledges both of these fighters after his base form has been surpassed. Rengoku stops Akaza's assault on Tanjiro, saying he knows his strength by looking at him, surmising he's probably a Hashira, and even though he's looking at his fighting spirit, assuming he's a Hashira is a insinuation of his strength. And after Tanjiro slimes out Akaza's base form in the castle, Akaza acknowledges that Tanjiro is strong like Rengoku claimed, and then brings out his compass. So it seems to be that Akaza considers anybody that's above his base form level and requires his compass to pull out as someone he deems strong. Narratively, if Rengoku is in the ballpark of this Tanjiro that fights Akaza, whether or not you think he's stronger, weaker, or equal, just being in this ballpark of Tanjiro, who's blatantly in the range of Compass Akaza, is way outside the capabilities of Upper Moon 4, let alone Upper Moon 5's pay grade. Not to mention, if you don't know what Gyokko does in his final form, he just tries to punch you to death with his God Hand's ability that turns you into a fish. Akaza's entire thing, like I said, is punching, so it should go without saying his compass punches are massively faster than upper rank 5 can punch. Even if you don't agree that Rengoku should be at this Tanjiro's level, you would still just have to assume Gyokko in his final form is faster than base form Akaza, and also be so much faster that he could outspeed Rengoku's reaction time. So regardless if Gyokko's in base form or in his final form, if he fights Rengoku, I don't see a scenario where he escapes with his life if both are fighting in character.